Some people tremble when they see someone die, while others simply watch, take a deep breath, and carry on with their lives. A surgeon and a murderer may see the same lifeless body, but one carries the weight of having tried everything, while the other bears the silence of feeling nothing. Both become accustomed to death. The difference lies in why they do so. Today, let's explore the science behind becoming accustomed to seeing death. When you witness death many times, something changes within you. It's not that you become cold or lose empathy, it's that your brain learns to protect you. Neuroscience calls this emotional habituation, the set of brain structures that experience fear, pain, or guilt. Initially, for anyone, seeing someone die is horrifying. So many emotions arise that your mind refuses to accept what your eyes see. But over time, the amygdala suppresses them, and death ceases to hurt as much. Not because it stops mattering, but because the brain decides that feeling so intensely is no longer useful. For doctors, this adaptation is a tool for continuing to save lives. In murderers, it's the starting point for removing them. Two brains that see the same scene, but two completely different stories. The doctor's brain. The first time a doctor sees a patient die, they probably saw it as a student, and something breaks in that moment. The ideal that medicine can handle anything shatters. The ego that believed it was in control breaks. And in that silence, the brain learns its first lesson. If you feel too much, you can't keep working. Thus begins the adaptation process. The amygdala, that internal alarm that triggers fear, begins to respond less and less. Several MRI studies show that experienced doctors activate the amygdala less and the prefrontal cortex more. That is, they basically remain cool. Not because they don't feel, but because they learn to think amidst the chaos. In psychology, it's called empathic resilience, the ability to understand pain without being destroyed by it. It's a necessary mental defense for operating, for delivering bad news without breaking down, or for continuing to treat another patient minutes after losing one. But of course, every shield has its cracks. Over the years, some doctors begin to disconnect more than they would like. They stop crying, they stop trembling, and sometimes they stop feeling altogether. At that point, compassion fatigue syndrome appears when the mind, exhausted from caring, can no longer do so. It's not instability, it's emotional exhaustion, because no matter how much the brain learns to suppress the pain, the body will always remember what it saw. The killer's brain? The killer doesn't get used to death. They were born accustomed to it. Where the doctor builds a shield to avoid feeling, the killer simply doesn't need it. Neuroscience has shown that in many psychopaths, the amygdala, the region that controls fear or the pain of others, is barely activated. Their brain processes death as a fact, not as a loss. In studies, when killers are shown violent images, the areas of empathy, that is the orbitofrontal cortex, the insula, and the anterior cingulate cortex, remain cold and silent. He feels no guilt, no anguish. The only thing that appears is a faint spark in the reward system, pleasure. Not because they enjoy the pain like in the movies, but because the act gives them a feeling of power, of absolute control over life and death. The doctor gets used to it so as not to break down. The murderer acts because he has nothing left to break. Two different brains, but in the same scenario. Death is routine. One sees death and seeks to understand it. The other creates it to feel alive. And here's a point of convergence. Both look death in the eye. The doctor does so with gloves, the murderer with bare hands. But they also share something that most avoid: habit. Watching death many times changes the way the brain understands life. Fear fades, and the value of a heartbeat becomes relative. Studies show that constant exposure to death alters the way we perceive risk, pain, even morality. In doctors, this habit becomes a tool, a way to do the right thing without becoming paralyzed. In murderers, it is a distortion. Other people's lives lose their meaning. But there's a point, a thin line, where both minds become alike, where death ceases to be a tragedy and becomes a process. And there, right there, the real question arises. How many times can you witness death before you stop feeling alive? So yes, death doesn't teach. It only repeats the same lesson until we stop feeling it. Some get used to it and face it with compassion, others with indifference, but the result is the same. We all end up witnessing our own slow disappearance. The habit of seeing death doesn't make you strong, it makes you different. Transform it into science, others into silence. And in the end, no matter how many times you see it, death never gets used to you. Subscribe.